are the roots with the paper and amulet scroll with incantation for an Assyrian woman from Ardishai, Urmia. Please, Helen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. In this presentation, I will first provide an overview of the scroll's contents and context. I will then give a brief account of the history of research on Syriac amulets. Next, I will examine the amulet from Ardishai in more detail before concluding with some reflections. Amulets and incantations played a significant role in the everyday lives of the Assyrians. As Surma de Bet Marshumun emphasized in the Book of Assyrian Church Customs 1920, these practices formed an integral part of lived religion, being deeply embedded in both domestic and spiritual contexts. Syriac amulet scrolls represent a continuation of older traditions dating back to the pre-Christian and Mesopotamian eras. This continuity was first demonstrated by Karl Friedrich Kremer in his 1924 dissertation Textstudien zu ostsyrischen Beschwörungsgebeten, and more recently by Alexei Lewandowski in his 2011 article Syriac Charms in a Near Eastern Context, tracing the origin of formulas. These texts are artifacts of cultural memory, reflecting fundamental human concerns such as health, protection, and divine intervention. They also provide a sense of control over misfortune and offer rare insights into popular religion and everyday spirituality. As demonstrated by Anna Cherkashina and Alexei Lyavdansky in their 2021 article Syriac Love Charms, some amulets contain love spells. The presence of these spells suggests that emotional and relational issues were considered valid subjects for religious and magical intervention. These examples demonstrated that Syriac Christian communities did not view their faith as conflicting with the use of magical practices to address personal concerns such as love, marriage, and fertility. Scribes used multicolored inks and combined text with figurative and geometric illustrations to enhance the manuscript visual and symbolic appeal. This is particularly evident in the example discussed in Andrea Schmidt's 2021 article, Eine syrische Amulettrolle für Frauen, which can be seen here. These artistic choices reinforce the spiritual power of the text. Amulet formats and motifs appear across a vast cultural landscape and transcend religious boundaries. A wide variety of terms were used in Syriac scrolls to describe this text. These include kharma, meaning band, kharza, amulet, yode in plural form, meaning a magical scrap of writing or amulet, kthifta, meaning writing or document, and qma'a, also meaning amulet. This terminological diversity reflects the flexible, often oral ritual context in which they were circulated. Rather than being static or standardized, the tradition was dynamic, involving creative recombination. Although many of the scribes were members of the clergy themselves, these texts were not formally endorsed by the church. In fact, church authorities were often skeptical of or even openly hostile towards magical practices. Nevertheless, such amulets flourished within lay religious life and were tolerated or unofficially incorporated into popular piety. This reflects their practical and functional nature. They were primarily created for ritual use rather than literary preservation, which is why they lacked standardization. Most of the surviving texts are handbooks or codices from the 18th to the 19th century as the Kitavet Nudarat Nasha, Book of Man's Protection, copied in 1802 or 3 in the village of Shibane or Zibane in the Tergever district west of Urmia and published by Hermann Gollanz in 1912. Additionally, Syriac amulet texts are preserved on paper or leather scrolls as well as in the form of magical bowls, a topic that will be discussed later in today's session. Andrea Schmidt notes that although extant text exhibits shared features, no two are entirely alike. These texts form a fluid corpus in which motifs and formulas are continually recombined and personalized. The earliest known example, dated to 1714, comes from the Sado collection in St. Petersburg. Schmidt has compiled a list of dated and undated manuscripts and scrolls. Many unpublished manuscripts in private collection, for example, in Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Europe, and the diaspora, have yet to be systematically examined. Gabi Abu Samra identifies the colloquial tone of this text, which is shaped by vernacular language and incantatory repetition. These qualities make them accessible and understandable to users. They often invoke sacred figures such as the Archangel Gabriel, Saint Mary, and East Syriac saints, including Margivergis, Rabban Hurmuz, Mar Udisho, Marshalita, Thamsis, and Zaya. Fragments found in Turfan, an oasis in western China, attest to the survival of these text traditions within the Church of the East. According to Erika Hunter, the 8th or 9th century prayer amulets from the Bulayik monastery near Turfan reflect an early form of amulets that were later used in the Hakkari region. The majority of non-manuscripts in this genre originate from the East Syriac tradition in the Hakkari-Urmia region, where they remained until the expulsion of Christians in 1915. Recent research, including studies by Alexei Lyavdensky and Nicholas Algilo, has also revealed previously unpublished manuscripts and examples from the West Syriac tradition. Now I'll turn to the second part of my presentation. As early as 1843, the American missionary Justin Perkins reported on magical texts in the Urmia area, including those in Ardishay. He mentioned a local clergyman who had memorized an old book. His travel accounts from 1843 are among the earliest Western references to magical texts among the Assyrians. They mention villages such as Ardishai and highlight the oral transmission of such materials before they were ever published or systematically studied. In the 1850s, George Percy Baja documented Assyrian religious practices in Mesopotamia and Kurdistan. The first published Syriac amulet appeared in 1893 when Willis Hazard analyzed materials from the Semitic Museum at Harvard University, making an important moment in bringing these texts from private or unknown settings into academic discourse. However, these early interpretations were influenced by Orientalism. Contemporary scholarship, on the other hand, seeks to understand these sources within their indigenous context. In 1897, Hermann Gollanz delivered a landmark lecture on Syriac amulets. His 1912 edition of the Kitabat Nudard Nasha and Karl Friedrich Kremer's 1924 dissertation laid the groundwork for modern scholarship. The field has been expanded by many scholars with numerous studies featured in Studies in the Syriac Magical Traditions, edited by Marco Morigi and Siam Bihairo, 2021, as can be seen here. I'll now turn to the third part of my presentation. Ardishai, or in the Persian form Urdu Shahi, is an Assyrian village near Urmia in northwest Iran. Historically, it belonged to the Tergever district and served as a diocese under the Quchanis Patriarchate. Several churches stood in Ardishai up until 1862, including Markhnania, Marshalita, Matmaryam, and Malacha Gabriel. This amulet scroll belonged to my mother, Elsa, the daughter of Esther and Benjamin Samunia. Measuring 205 centimeters in length and 7.5 centimeters in width, she kept it with her throughout her life. It contains 6 incantations written on thin strips of paper that have been glued together and rolled into a scroll. The scroll can be worn and around the neck or kept under the pillow. This physical use was part of its protective function. The scroll is written in a clear East Syriac script in black ink and is untitled. It is partially vocalized and punctuated. Each incantation ends with the formula "and Amen," yes and amen. Errors have been corrected or overwritten. The name Elsa appears several times in different spellings. Headings are marked in red ink. The lack of illustrations is consistent with other East Syriac amulets, which tend to prioritize the power of sacred names, scriptural quotations, and formulaic incantations over visual elements. This suggests a textual, magical culture in which written words were considered ritually potent themselves. It also reflects practical considerations, such as the cost of illustrated scrolls. The damaged colophon mentions the number 65, indicating 1965, and the place name Qrita Sangar, village of Sangar near Ardishai. The amulet scroll opens with the prologue to the Gospel of John, a text that is frequently found at the beginning of Syriac amulets. This is followed by the khirma or anathema of the Archangel Gabriel, which is intended to provide protection against the evil eye. Themes and formulas in this passage are similar to those in Codex A in Goland's edition and the amulet published by Hazard, 1893. Further protective khirma then appear in typical sequence, beginning with a khirma of Martamsis, which is used against epilepsy. This text also shows both thematic and formulaic parallels with text Codex A in Goland's edition and an amulet published by Shabo Talay, Rudolf, and Yusef Kuria. There is also a text in honor of Mar Givargis and a khirma of the Saint Mary, which is directed against various demonic influences. This is followed by a khirma of Marzaya, comparable with section 103 in Goland's edition. Of particular note is the inclusion of the so-called Asrad Eshatha, a text intended for binding fever, which is also documented by Goland's. The scroll concludes with personal prayers and invocations aimed specifically at the healing of Elsa, daughter of Esther. The final passage consists of a doxology and a Trinitarian formula and ends with the formula through the prayers of Saint Mary and the prayer of Saint John the Baptist. With this case study, I aim to contribute to current research on Syriac amulet literature, as Abigail Pearson emphasized in Syriac Magic, an overview of previous approaches and prospects for the future. Editing and analyzing primary sources is essential to understand this textual genre, which has thus far been neglected of academic research. She calls for comparative and intercultural studies across Aramaic dialects and adjacent traditions in Hebrew, Arabic, Ethiopian, and Akkadian. Such an approach is crucial for gaining a deeper understanding of how communities in the ancient and early modern Near East coped with fear, illness, uncertainty, and the need for protection and medical care. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. We have plenty of time for questions. Please, who? You want to?
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. Of course, I'm not an expert in incantation Syriac.
Me too.
Yeah, but the question is, maybe I didn't got it exactly. So, could you formulate it a bit more precise? So, where do you think there are miniatures, and where, I mean, is there any is it original peculiarities or the type of manuscripts? I mean, when the illustrations are present and when not? I mean, is there any precise definition or region or something like that?
I think that was because the illustrated manuscripts were expensive to produce.
Okay.
That's one of the main reasons. And the others were cheaper and easier.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Helen. I have to question whether you know whether it is possible to change the name and sell such an amulet again. You change the name. In our case, we had, I think, which we published, there was a name deleted, and then a Persian name came, maybe
Yes.
even non-Christian, maybe a Muslim. At least Yasaman could be Christian or not in our case.
Yeah.
So is it possible to change the name, but the illnesses and so on, the protection is needed for everything. So what about your case?
No, not in the same scroll. They produce another scroll because it's not okay. It's chtita. It's
It's
yes,
a sin.
it's a sin.
But
And
in our
it's
case,
not-
it was deleted.
No,
Marta
no.
Was in our case.
Ah,
we
okay.
published. Marta was deleted, and
Oh,
then
okay.
Yasaman came.
Ah, okay.
Sometimes you can see several persons.
Yes. So instead, you can sell it further. You get much more money. It's just
Yeah.
eliminated, so you have the nice illuminations. Then it costs maybe more, and you make more money of them.
Yeah.
Is it a sin to delete it or to sell it further?
To sell it, because you have to buy it, and that's your property, and you have to keep it to your body, and that's all. It's not allowed to to remove the name and use it again and again.
Do we have more questions?
Just a question. This text is only related to Aina Bishta, and or are there other topics that are related? Imagine to get pregnant and so on. But how many, let's say, fields does the amulet, englobe?
Yes. The main topic of the text is, as you saw, the colophon is from 1965. In 1965, my mother lost a 9-month baby, a son. He had fever, and there was no doctor in Ardishai, but a healer in Sanger. And the Sanger was the healer was a clergyman. He wrote the scroll, and the topic of this scroll is banning and binding of fever.
Thank you. In your research, were you able to identify a certain structure in different manuscripts?
Sorry.
Certain
Structure. Would you be able to identify certain structure in manuscripts?
like that would repeat in different manuscripts?
Many of the topics, they have own title, and it is written in red ink. So it's a certain organization of the manuscript. You can see it, which topic are important. They are written with red ink. It was your question? I don't know.
Yeah, I was wondering if you can see same structure, different topic.
Yes, for example, Khirma of Mar Thamsis in Ardishai scroll is longer than in Talai's publication. And you can see that the text is more longer, and I don't know why, but I think Mar Thamsis is one of the most important East Syriac saints, and the healer described him and wrote more about him. Some differences you can see some differences. Yeah.
In relation to this question, if I may, the formula at the beginning, Shim'a wa Wora, is always the same, or there are slight changes?
Most of scrolls begin with the prologue of Gospel John. Yeah, most of them. And then it's depend on your need and concerns. If you have lost a baby, or you will have a safe travel, So they include another khirma for your to have a good travel, for example.
Okay, thank you so much for your topic, but I ask you about this from religion or from tradition. This يعني خرمة and كتابات from tradition, Eastern tradition or religion?
Both of them, because the doxology and Trinitarian at the end of the scroll reflects the Syriac Christian framework. And both of them, you can see religious topic, terms and another terms. That's, for example, this Arabic or Hebrew scrolls and Syriac scrolls, all of them have more or less same structure, but in Syriac scrolls, they use the Syriac script, and there are a certain biblical, theological references, and that differentiated them culturally and linguistically.
Yeah, thank you very much for the fascinating material. I just a small comment that you mentioned some parallels, previous editions of Mark Dempsey's prayer,
Yes.
and I think it would be nice to mention that it was found already in Turfan.
I didn't get the...
Mark Dempsey's prayer, it was found already in Turfan and published by Erica Hunter.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to
Yeah, 2024.
2013.
Ah, okay. Yes. I guess I read it, and it was the discussion was if the Tamsis is the same as Mar Thomas, but it isn't. It's the same subject. Yeah.
Okay, probably
Thank you.
we have time for just one question. Please.
Thank you very much for this fascinating presentation.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, so if the amulets are so personal, are there any rules about inheriting them, or they are not inheritable? And the other question I would have about the written support, because if I understood correctly, and they are to be kept under pillow or all the time, how do they manage not to, I mean, especially modern times, not to...
Yes. In the manuscript, there is no sign or no sentences about this, the use of scroll. But it's common among the people that you have to keep it close to your body, because the physical use of the scroll is part of their protection function, protective function, and that's very important. But in the whole manuscript, I didn't saw anything about it.
Helen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're moving forward. Our next speaker is Simcha Gruas, and he will be talking about divorcing demons in Jewish, Aramaic, and Syriac, reflections on transmission and religious contact in late antique Iraq.
There's a handout coming around, so grab one if you can.
It's just one page.
Just one page. Put this here. Oh, yeah, we could do that. Sure. Okay, I'm very grateful to the organizers and to Shabo for the invitation to participate. Since their discovery over a century ago, scholars have widely recognized that the Aramaic incantation bowls dating from the 5th to 7th century and written in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic, Syriac, and Mandaic scripts, offer valuable insight into interreligious contact in late antique Iraq. In the words of James Montgomery in his, these are the three dialects, in the words of James Montgomery in his landmark 1913 edition, quote, "The magic of our bowls is so eclectic that even a Jewish Aramaic text does not imply a Jewish exorcist nor Jewish clients. We have to think of a clientele partly Jewish, partly non-Jewish, to which the religious affinities of the magic were indifferent." The many publications since Montgomery confirm the basic fact of interreligious contact in several different ways. From cases where bowls have been unearthed in situ, we have learned that a single residence could house bowls written in various dialects and scripts. Individual clients therefore commissioned bowls in multiple scripts. The theophoric names of many of the clients likewise testifies to the intermingling of religious populations in late antique Mesopotamia, with Christian and Zoroastrian clients, for instance, patronizing Jewish scribes. Perhaps most striking are those cases in which a bowl inscribed in one script contains elements that, from a modern perspective, might be assumed to be foreign or even taboo for the religious community with which the script is associated. A parade example of these porous boundaries is a bowl written in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic that cites several biblical verses, but also an invocation of Jesus and the Trinity, alongside references to other non-Jewish deities. At the very least, the incantation bowls demonstrate that various groups in late antique Iraq, including Jews, Christians, Mandaeans, and Zoroastrians, shared a broad cosmological framework that acknowledged malevolent forces threatening health, prosperity, and general well-being. They also employed common ritual technologies to counter such threats, notably the use of inscribed ceramic bowls. At times, these shared concerns became points of contact and exchange, as practices, incantations, and materials were transmitted between clients and scribes in ways that challenged modern notions of rigid religious boundaries. One of the parade examples of interreligious contact is a group of Syriac bowls that contain an incantation rich in Jewish motifs and historiolae, closely paralleling a comparable collection of Jewish Babylonian Aramaic bowls. These Syriac texts incorporate the standard Jewish divorce formula and associate it with Rabbi Joshua ben Parachia, a figure known from classical rabbinic literature. While this case has attracted scholarly attention, particularly within studies narrowly focused on Jewish-Christian contact, the precise nature of the interreligious interactions reflected in these bowls remains insufficiently explored. A renewed investigation of this case study is warranted in light of significant developments in the study of the incantation bowls. In the first place, the past generation has witnessed a remarkable increase in the number of published bowls. This expanded and more diverse corpus offers new opportunities to reassess how these artifacts illuminate not only the social histories of specific communities in late antique Iraq, but also the nature of their interrelationships. Yet with few exceptions, scholars have continued to treat the bowls as a unified corpus that reflects the general popular religious practices and traditions of the period, a window into a broadly conceived syncretistic koine. In a recent study, Abigail Monikin-Bamberger and I urged scholars to move beyond this homogenizing view, emphasizing that the incantation bowls do not constitute a single, undifferentiated body of material. Rather, they reflect the work of distinct individuals and groups. We therefore advocate for more localized and nuanced analyses of these artifacts. While our argument there focused on variations among Jewish incantation bowls, the underlying insight is equally relevant for understanding the dynamics of interreligious contact, both among the producers of the bowls and the clients who commissioned them. Our approach is also informed by the works of Joseph Sanzo and Ranan Bustan, my co-author in this project, who have analyzed how motifs, formulae, and narratives found in magical artifacts crossed the boundaries of religious traditions. They argue that such elements should not be assumed to possess an essential religious identity rooted in an imagined point of origin, a misconception that reflects an etymological fallacy. For example, the appearance of the term Adonai Tzvaot, an epithet for God in the Hebrew Bible, across various magical traditions in antiquity, should not be automatically interpreted as a marker of Jewish identity by the scribes who employed it. Rather, the significance of any given tradition or element must be evaluated within the logic of the specific artifact in which it appears. It is therefore incumbent upon us, wherever possible, to attend closely to the dynamics of reception, recontextualization, and transformation that were central both to the production and perceived efficacy of magical practices in late antiquity. Our paper today seeks to shift scholarly attention from the mere fact of intercommunal exchange reflected in the incantation bowls to a more textured, localized, and nuanced evaluation of the nature of that contact. Through a philological analysis of the Syriac incantation bowls that employ the Rabbi Joshua ben Parachia historiola and the Jewish divorce formula, compared with their counterparts in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic, we argue that these bowls reflect not one moment of contact, but different stages in the process of the reception of a Jewish formula into Syriac. We hope that this case study encourages further work that emphasizes the inherently local and contextual nature of incantation bowl production and use in antiquity. A handful of incantation bowls from Sasanian Iraq, written in Syriac script, employ a lengthy incantation replete with motifs that clearly originate in a Jewish context. As mentioned, not only do these bowls use a Jewish divorce formula, but they include a historiola related to the activities of Rabbi Joshua ben Parachia. Numerous Jewish Babylonian incantation bowls similarly include a divorce formula used by this same Joshua. He also appears in rabbinic literature, though importantly, it is only in the Babylonian Talmud, also composed in Sasanian Iraq, that Joshua is identified as the rabbinic master of none other than Jesus himself, who Joshua, quote, pushed away with both hands. The Syriac script bowl B16019, which was excavated in the late 19th century at Nippur and is now housed at my home University of Pennsylvania, is typical of this group. I will read the Syriac incantation on the right. You should all have the handout. So I'll read the Syriac incantation on the right in English, and as I read, please compare it to the Jewish Babylonian Aramaic incantation on the left, and we'll return to this a few times over the course of the lecture. So I'm now reading. I am casting and drawing a lot, and an efficacious act that was performed like it was, when Rav Joshua bar Parachia sat and wrote against them a dastwira, this is a divorce document, against all of them, demons and devils and Satans and Liliths and no good ones that are in the house of Dadbes son of Asmanducht. Again, he wrote against them a bill of divorce, a dastwira, that is forever, in the name of the letter Medeg, letter, the letters from letters of the name, the blank space from the blank space, that by virtue of these were pressed the heaven and the earth and the mountains, and by virtue of those were uprooted the heights, and by virtue of those were delivered for punishment the sorcery, demons, and devils, and Satans, and Liliths, and no good ones, and those that went out from the world, and he ascended on account of you demons on high, and he brought against you the countercharms, destruction to destroy, and removing to remove you from the house of Dadbes son of Asmanducht, and from everything he has. You are divorced by virtue of the dastwira, bound, sealed, and countersealed, as the primeval demons did not lie, and the primeval men who evaporated, they are not any longer. Again, bound, sealed, and countersealed is this bill of divorce in the name of Yah 7 times. Amen, amen, Selah. May be sealed and may be protected the house of this David bar Asmanducht, and his wife, his sons and his daughters, and his property from the tormentor and the curse. Amen. As is quite obvious from the side-by-side comparison presented in the handout, the text of the incantation in Syriac script closely resembles the bowl in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic script. In addition to the common use of Joshua bar Parachia and the divorce formula, the bowls arrange their literary units in virtually the same sequence. Even some of the more peripheral technical language is the same. Most notably, both of the bowls claim that Joshua retrieved his protective power during a heavenly journey, and both connect this power to traditions regarding the ritual efficacy of language, letters. Indeed, the intimacy of the relationship of the bowls in these two scripts prompted Shaul Shaked to conclude that the Syriac bowls represent either, quote, a transcription from a Jewish Aramaic model or from an oral formula first uttered in Jewish Aramaic. In addition to the striking thematic and structural similarities between the Jewish, Babylonian, Aramaic, and Syriac incantations, the high degree of uniformity among the 5 Syriac exemplars of this bowl is noteworthy. Most notably, the Syriac bowls all share a set of linguistic markers that indicate that they had a common archetype. I will begin by examining the differences between the Syriac and the Jewish Aramaic texts on the handout. As has long been observed, B16019, like its 4 sibling bowls, employs the Iranian loanword dastvira, to refer to the divorce document, in place of the technical term get found in the Jewish parallels. The Syriac incantation also eliminates any mention of the law of Moses and Israel when referring to the divorce document, a formula that was crucial in ancient Jewish practice for the legal status of marriage and divorce procedures. Similarly, the Syriac bowl differs from both the Jewish Babylonian Aramaic bowls and from each other in the occasional inclusion of additional introductory and concluding material, though this is a common feature across incantations. Unlike the Jewish Babylonian Aramaic incantation, the Syriac bowls make no reference to the fear of bad dreams. This, however, does not reflect a case of Syriac omission, but likely points to the absence of this motif within the Jewish Babylonian Aramaic urtext that both traditions draw from. And indeed, we find just such a parallel Jewish Babylonian Aramaic text without any reference to dreams and lacking any concluding formula. Okay, despite these telling differences, the Syriac texts do not share a preponderance, despite these telling differences, the Syriac texts not only share a preponderance of parallel motifs with the Jewish bowls, but even precise linguistic correspondences. These similarities indicate that we are likely dealing with a process of direct borrowing. Most suggestively, the scribe who produced the Syriac bowl leaves certain key phrases of the Jewish Aramaic incantation untranslated. For example, the scribe does not convert the original Hebrew word ot, meaning letter, into the Syriac lexeme atota. Rather, the word has simply been transliterated into Syriac script, ot. In fact, the Syriac appears to reduplicate the phrase mechanically in an almost stammering fashion, producing the semi-nonsensical sequence ot, otot, otot. This kind of a repetitive imitation may more likely originate in an oral context. But the conservation of Jewish Aramaic formulations within the Syriac text is at its most extreme with the word medeg, which is embedded in the phrase b'shum ot medeg ot otot otot min gau otot, or otot, which is translated in the name of the letter medeg, letter, letters, letters within letters. Scholars have yet to explain this strange lexeme. In our view, the word medeg is an attempt to render the phonology of the Hebrew word mitoch in the Jewish Babylonian Aramaic incantation in exactly the same location. This contrasts with the subsequent lines of the same motif in which the Syriac scribe translated the Hebrew mitoch into the proper Syriac mingau. The use of medeg, rather than a perfect replication of mitoch, may suggest a phonetic error that arose during oral transmission. And the consistency with which all of the Syriac bowls reproduce these seemingly nonsensical elements again points to the fact that all the Syriac bowls derive from a single common archetype. Other changes that occurred in the process of transmission and translation from Jewish Aramaic to Syriac are similarly revealing. Most notable is the rendering of the name of Joshua bar Parachia in the two sets of bowls. In Jewish Aramaic, Parachia is written with the guttural chet. By contrast, the Syriac bowls consistently spell the rabbi's name with a hey. This shift reflects the softening of gutturals in Eastern Aramaic dialects. The spelling with chet in the Jewish Aramaic bowls reflects either the conservation of the pronunciation of a prominent rabbinic figure or merely conservation of the orthography of his name. The orthographic shift in Syriac may again suggest that the process of transmission occurred orally, where they heard parachia and not parachia. What do these patterns of textual and linguistic adoption and adaptation reveal about the process underlying the production of this cluster of Syriac bowls? First, the sheer homogeneity of the Syriac incantations proves that we are dealing with a single event, original event of translation. This evidence indicates that the 5 Syriac exemplars all derive from a common ancestor, which we could dub Bowl Alpha. Second, it is theoretically possible and even likely that none of the extant bowls in our possession represent this ancestor, but are instead subsequent iterations thereof. We can then refer to the series of bowls under the term sigma. This term should be taken to imply, this term should be taken to imply that none of these texts is earlier or more authoritative than its siblings. At the same time, these iterations of alpha should not be thought of as merely derivative creations. Despite the broadly conservative character of these bowls, the scribes who produced them incorporated additional framing material either to address the particular needs of their clients or to achieve a degree of aesthetic or rhetorical completeness. We must therefore differentiate between the type of engagement with Jewish material evidenced by Syriac bowl alpha from that pertaining to the Syriac bowls sigma. So what then is the process of the production of Syriac Bowl Alpha. This initial act of translation was possibly carried out by a Syriac scribe who simply possessed linguistic competencies in both Syriac and Jewish Babylonian Aramaic scripts, and thereby directly adapted a Jewish Babylonian Aramaic bowl with no need for Jewish Babylonian Aramaic scribes. And indeed, we have some evidence of bi-dialectical scribes in late antiquity and the early Middle Ages who can write in both Jewish script or block script and in Syriac script. However, the errors in transmission, coupled with the adaptations that deracinated particular Jewish elements in the original incantation, militates against this possibility. Instead, it appears more likely that we are dealing with a Syriac scribe who accessed the Jewish Babylonian Aramaic incantation through the mediation of a Jewish Babylonian Aramaic scribe. This explains both the acts of adaptation right, removing all these two Jewish elements like the divorce formula and so on, and the grammatical inconsistencies and transcriptional oddities that we have identified. It is likely that this process involved some form of oral transmission, which best accounts for several of the quirks that characterize the Syriac text, such as transcription of mitoch as medeg, the weakening of the guttural chet, and the sputtering reduplication of the word otot. If our reconstructed scenario is correct, we can derive broader conclusions about the mechanics of adaptation and transmission of originally Jewish elements into the Syriac incantation. First, some elements of the Jewish divorce formula, most importantly, the very term for the divorce contract itself, get, were altered or removed. It would seem that the scribe responsible for this initial act of adaptation found these elements unappealing or even problematic, perhaps because they were recognizably Jewish or even too Jewish, whatever that might have meant to him. By contrast, other elements, such as the figure of Rabbi Joshua ben Parachia, became stable features of all the Syriac texts. Given the evident selectivity of the scribe of Bowl Alpha in modifying certain Jewish elements, it is plausible that Rabbi Joshua ben Parachia was not perceived as problematic precisely because the scribe accepted the tradition found in the Babylonian Talmud that identified him as a teacher of Jesus. If so, this act of adaptation reveals a remarkable phenomenon: a Christian scribe engaging positively with a Jewish narrative about the origins of Jesus while seemingly disregarding the broader associations the figure held within Jewish contexts. As opposed to Bowl Alpha, the Sigma Bowls do not attest direct contact with a Jewish individual or a Jewish incantation. They reflect first and foremost the imitation of what was already a Syriac incantation. As such, we must ask whether and to what extent the scribes or clients of the Sigma Bowls were aware of the Jewish roots of the Syriac incantation, or to what extent it had been entirely nativized into its Syriac context. Perhaps some later scribes and clients did not continue to associate these motifs with their Jewish origins at all. A nuanced posture towards the Syriac divorce formula is suggested by the case of Dadbe bar Asmanducht, a client associated with 4 incantation bowls housed at the Penn Museum, 2 written in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic and 2 in Syriac. I take my students to play with these every year. This alone demonstrates the capacity of clients to patronize scribes across linguistic and presumably confessional boundaries, right, both in Syriac and in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic. What is particularly striking, however, is that one of the 2 Syriac bowls commissioned by Dadbe is none other than B 16019. Is it merely coincidence that Dadbe both crossed confessional lines in the scribes he employed, one Jewish Babylonian Aramaic and the other Syriac, and in the content of the Syriac bowl, which features Rabbi Joshua ben Parachia? Or might it be suggested that Dadbe actively preferred Jewish motifs when available, perhaps reflecting a broader phenomenon noted in late antiquity in which some Christians regarded Jewish incantations as especially potent? While such possibilities remain speculative, they invite us to consider the agency of ancient clients and to remain attentive to how they may have perceived, valued, or reclassified certain motifs as Jewish or not within their own ritual frameworks. Lastly, another of the Syriac Joshua bowls held in the Jewish Museum and published by Siegel was composed for the client Tashich Roy, son of Kayumta. Siegel suggests that this is the brother of the client Babanosh, son of Kayumta, a client of a Jewish Babylonian Aramaic bowl published by Montgomery with none other than Joshua ben Parachia on his bowl. If these 2 men were in fact siblings, might this reflect a family propensity for a particular invocation, regardless of whether it appears in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic or Syriac script? In contrast to Dadbe and the Kayumta brothers, Other scribes and clients of the Sigma bowls may simply have considered their text with its deracinated divorce formula, Joshua ben Parachia, and the appeal to the power of letters to be nothing more than a Syriac incantation. This would show how quickly originally Jewish formula could be naturalized into Syriac. We have thus argued that a close examination of this single incantation formula in Syriac reveals the varied forms of interaction and the dynamic relationships both between the traditions represented in the bowls and between the scribes and their clients. It demonstrates that we cannot and should not generalize about the nature of Jewish-Christian interactions in the magical practices of late antique Iraq. Rather than providing a window onto a broad religious koine or illustrating the permeability of Judaism and Christianity in antiquity, this modest cluster of bowls raises new questions about the local worlds of a small group of scribes and clients, individuals who first and foremost represented no one but themselves. Lastly, this case study in turn underscores the need for a more localized and contextual approach to the incantation bowls, one that accounts for the specific choices of individual scribes and clients. Many other compelling examples remain beyond the scope of this presentation. Rather than viewing this remarkable collection, the remarkable collection of the bowls as a monolithic reflection of syncretistic religion, we must attend to the microhistories that shape their production, transmission, and reception. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you divorced the students from demons. So we have some time for questions. Please. So if somebody can translate from Arabic?
Yeah. Who knows well Arabic and English?
What was the question?
No, she is
The question
asking.
Yeah.
is coming.
بس بالنسبة لهاي الرسم الآلهة اللي بالوسط هذه الآلهة ليليث
Lilith?
She asked whether Lilith is on the picture.
هذه الآلهة الصغيرة يعني كانت تقتل الأطفال فكانوا يرسموها على الصحون وياها تعويذة حتى تمنع الأم أن تفقد طفلها يعني فبس سؤال إنه هاي المادة المكتوبة اللي يعني الحبر ما يزول بالمي يعني أي مادة ما تعرفت عليها؟
What is the ink, the material writing? Because if you put water into it, the ink would go. What kind of material?
Both great questions, also about Lilith, right?
Yes.
So first about Lilith. Lilith is a class of demons. Lilith is not a single demon. She becomes a single demon mostly in the medieval period. There are some precursors to this. That said, she's clearly, they're both male and female Liliths also, but she does begin to have a personification of a single female demoness. We think that this one all the way on the left, do I have a laser pointer? All the way on the left is probably Lilith, the one with the exuding female genitalia. It's a very strange one because she's not bound. All the demons are typically bound. You can see that their legs are bound or their heads are bound, and she isn't, but she's enclosed with a circle, so maybe that's how she's bound. The art of the bowls needs to be studied. There's one book on the subject. It's in Hebrew. It's being translated into English. It's okay, but there's a lot more work to do on the art and how the art of each bowl relates to the incantation on the bowl. And no one has done this work yet in a serious fashion. About the second question, which was, remind me? When it was first discovered in the middle of the 19th century, the original theory was that people would take the bowls, pour water, and drink it. There's no evidence that that was really what happened. The ink is put on the bowls directly. If you wipe them with your finger, it comes off. A lot of them are very. Yeah, you can't put water in it. Yeah, and they fade very quickly. I can show. No Maya, there's no water. They were put in the earth to avoid water. But just to show you, this on the left is a bowl, an unpublished Syriac bowl at the Penn Museum. It's going to be published in 1 week from now by me and somebody else. If you look, it's very faded, right? You can't really read it. And so we now use multispectral imaging and we can now read it. But this is what happens to the bowls when they're exposed to anything other than dirt. The second they're exposed, they begin to fade.
بس ما تحطي شيء ثاني فيه راح يشرب
Yeah.
يعني الحبر مش للمي هذول.
Yeah, no,
هي كانت توضع تحت الاساسات او
إيه.
بالابواب
ايه
يعني حتى تمنع الشرب.
صح بس مش بالمي ويشربوها.
yeah, no drinking.
Thank you very much for this such an interesting presentation. Just a question in relation to this comparative study that you have done, both, let's say, Babylonian, Talmudic, Aramaic, and Syriac. What is your opinion? Is it really a Jewish tradition that has been cultivated in Mesopotamia, or they have been adopted from a previous period?
The incantations as a whole,
Yeah.
the incantation bowls as a collection, it's not at all a particularly Jewish practice. It's a particularly Babylonian practice. Its life cycle was very brief. It's from the 5th century to the 7th century CE, and that's it. We have dates. There are 4 bowls that will be published that have dates. 2 of them are from 591 CE, 2 of them are from 609 CE. If you look at the archaeological reports, they're all from the late Sasanian to the early Islamic period. So let's say by 700 they're gone. So it's a very brief window in Iraq when these are practiced. We have parallel Jewish incantations from around the world at this time, and they have some parallels, but this is a very particular genre of incantation. The Jewish incantations here are more similar to the Syriac and Mandaic bowls than to Jewish incantations in other parts of the world. So I don't think it's a particularly Jewish practice. What the roots of this practice are is something that still requires further research, whether it's ancient, this goes back to the talk from the previous session, to what degree it relates to ancient Babylonian magic, to what degree it's something that's being produced in late antiquity. We still need to explore the kind of origins of this practice, but it's not particularly Jewish.
But in relation to the Syriac text, do you mean that it's also linked to the Assyrian Christian previous period, or is just a question of having this tradition cultivated throughout the centuries?
I don't think this is a confessionally particular practice. It's not particular to any group.
Traditional.
It's a tradition. What we mean by tradition, we can elaborate, but it's some kind of a tradition that is distinct. It's not distinctively to any of them. I should say, people want to argue that there's the script of a bowl does not correspond to the identity of the scribe. So Syriac is not a Christian bowl, Babylonian Aramaic is not a Jewish bowl, Mandaic is not a Mandaic scribe. In reality, the bowls of a certain script, the Syriac bowls, the Jewish Babylonian Aramaic bowls, Mandaic bowls, are most similar to each other than to the others. So there do seem to be something particular to each of these scripts and their traditions, even though there's a lot of overlap between them. So it's a complicated situation.
Thank you for a fascinating presentation here. My question is related to what's already discussed and also related to this question about kind of established religious traditions versus popular religion. And it also relates to your methods. You use kind of classical philology into this. How do you come to terms with the fact that the material used, the ceramics, is vastly different from codex in terms of cost, production cost? How does that influence your approach when dealing with this, which probably could be more easily mass-produced to a lower price compared to other texts that we philologists are more used to deal with?
So it's a great question. I should say historically, in terms of the study of magic, there's not necessarily a direct correlation between the price of objects and their prestige. That is, once we get to manuscript culture, there is a kind of correlation, but in other contexts, it's not necessarily the case, and in fact, it's often an inverse correlation. The more expensive something is, the more inauthentic it feels, and that people are not attracted to it. I also think it's there's a little bit of a capitalist assumption that the elite necessarily also ascribe value to the monetary worth of an object. And it's not necessarily the case. It's the expertise, I think, that's really the value here. In terms of elite versus non-elite and how we subdivide the bowls, this project or paper, it's okay, it's fine. The article that I co-wrote with Abigail, Manneken Bamberger, what we basically showed is that different Jewish Babylonian Aramaic formulas, some of them are, they cluster. So there's some bowls that have not one, but several highly learned scholastic traditions. So things that are directly out of the Babylonian Talmud, things that are from several different textual corpuses, and then other bowls that have a kind of melange of deities from all over the place. Very, what we might say is popular, right? And very short invocations without any kind of clear scholastic root to them. And so it's consistent. Whenever you have a learned tradition, you have 5 or 10 of them. Whenever you don't have them, they don't appear at all. It's not that it kind of appears here and there. And so what we wanted to argue is that it seems to be that either the scribes or the clients or both could be subdivided into elite and non-elite, or learned and non-learned, or in our case, rabbinic and non-rabbinic. Right? There are different ways to slice the cake, but either way, that the traditions and the expertise exemplified by the traditions is what was valued differently by different clients and scribes. And so that's how we subdivide them, not by class per se, but by types of expertise.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
We will have at the end of the last one, before lunch, we will have a short presentation. Okay, you are ready for, but after finishing this lecture, so just before lunch to make you more hungry.
Yeah, our next speaker will be presenting online, so he is almost ready. It's Gabi Abu-Samra from Lebanese University of Beirut, and he will be talking about the Syriac magical bowl in Phoenician script.
Can you hear us? You are
Gabi,
muted.
you have to unmute yourself.
And
Maybe you can unmute.
du bist stumm? Nee.
Gabi, kannst du uns hören?
Nee, er ist stumm, aber ich kann ihn irgendwie nicht aufheben.
Du bist stumm geschaltet. Du kannst es nicht. Er ist stumm geschaltet. Hier vielleicht.
I think he has to unmute himself.
Gabi, you are muted.
Okay.
Ja,
Now we
schieb das
can
hier.
hear you. Good.
Schieb das hier. Nee. Die Präsentation ist gut. Und das
Do
sieht
you
die
see
Kamera
the
von mir.
bowl?
Yes.
Not yet.
No, not yet, not yet.
It's coming.
No.
You should share. You are sharing the screen, but not the presentation.
How to do it?
But you did it before. Stop sharing and start sharing again.
Okay.
Now, share your presentation now.
This one.
Well, we don't see it. Yes,
Yes.
now.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Can you maximize it?
Yeah, please.
So,
It's good.
Yes.
und dann die
Bildschirm.
Präsentationsmodus.
Ja, Bildschirmpräsentation.
Yes, this one.
Okay. One moment.
Yeah.
Now you see the good. Hello.
Yes.
No, please, kannst du...
Slideshow.
I think he pressed slideshow.
He pressed, but it doesn't function.
Yeah.
Okay, you can start, Gabi.
Okay. Do you see?
Yes.
Do you see the bowl?
Yes.
Yes, we see.
Okay. Okay, thank you, and I'm so sorry to not be with you today. So, my paper concerns an unpublished Syriac magical text, in Manichaean script inscribed
on its pillar book. The text deals with incantatory formulas written by a magician for some clients, Gilaita, her house, and her children, to seal and protect them against bad aggressors, Liliths, devils, and evil spirits. Within this kind of magical text, every actor has his own role to play. The practitioner, the scribe, the clients, Gilaita and her family, the demons and the deities, Shamish and Sina. This kind of object, the ball, with its text, the incantation, allow us to comprehend their magical rituals and their roles within ceremonies in the late antiquity, during the Sasanian period, with the additional insight into ancient Iraq, reflecting the conceptualizations and the beliefs of each religious community. I mean, Jewish, Christian, Mandaean, and pagan, each with its own traditions. Magic balls were found frequently in Mesopotamia. They are dated to the period roughly between the 5th and 7th or 8th century CE and are inscribed in one of the Aramaic dialects that were spoken at several sites in Mesopotamia. The Mandaic, Jewish Aramaic, and Syriac. Syriac bowls were written in 3 different kinds of script: Strangelo, Certo, and Manichaean, as our bowl now. At present, about 66 Syriac bowls appear to have been published. The bowl that is the subject of my study is written in Manichaean script. It belonged to the collection of the now deceased private collector Farid Ziadi in Gazir, Lebanon. Its provenance is unknown, as it is present location. We lose the location of this bowl. In spite of its broken state, 13 large and small pieces, the text is almost entirely clear. The bowl has not been measured, but I think it measured 16 by 6 centimeters. The text consists of 11 lines running in the clockwise spiral from the bottom to the wall text. The clients mentioned in this text who are to be protected are Gilaita, but Dudai, and her children. The main demon in the incantation is Shamhiza, the Lord Bagdan. Some lines of this incantation text are parallel to such that preserved in the second part of Morigi Bowl number 1 in his corpus, which is itself, according to Morigi, parallel to Bowl number MS 2055 in the Schoen collection. Some remarks on the script. First, the Siam, the 2 dots, as you see around all the text we have many 2 dots. Sign of plural are marked above masculine and feminine plural. The second one is a 1 dot. 1 dot sign of feminine is marked above the final feminine singular suffix pronoun. The use of the plural benata with Aleph. I will show you. Ben Ata is Ibna Ben Ata. You can see the Aleph here, and under the Aleph there is a Batlana, a kind of hyphen under Aleph. We should note that the use of Batlana is not attested until now in the Syriac magical books in this early period. But in the end of the text, we can see he corrected the Ibnata, he wrote it without Aleph in the last line. Now I will present to you the text. You can see the text and the presentation. I will not read the text to not lose the time. Some of you can read Syriac or transliteration in Latin characters, and some can read the translation. I give some commentary. The line 1 and 3, this is an opening formula in the Syriac amulets, as most of you know.
Gabi,
Yes.
We can't see your presentation. You should move it. If you try to move. No, it's not.
Can you click on the slides on the left? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, now it's okay?
Yes.
Well, we see
You
now the
have
text. Yes.
to select the right slide.
So, I give small lines.
Now it's perfect.
It's okay like this?
Oh.
Now, can you...
Wait.
Can you maximize it again? Where it is. Okay, you can see it now?
It's too small. Yes, good.
I don't know where I am.
Okay.
Okay, now it's fine.
Well, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I should come back. Okay, all the text with 11 lines are in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. In the line 3 and 4, Gilyata bat Dudai wabna wabnata. Ibna and Ibnata are the plural of the bar, the masculine, the son, and the bar, feminine, the daughter. In the line 6, you have 7 times ya, as mentioned before me, Simcha. 7 times. This sequence of 7 ya is followed by Shab'a, 7, or by the digital 7, is attested in several books. The use of 7 Yud-Hey as a magic power can be compared with the use of 7 crosses in other document and Manichaean books. In the line 6, we have the Bishnei Kiryata. The classical word of the word year is Shinta or Shno, and the plural is Shnin or Shnai. This scribe made the word a plural by adding the Syame, and possibly he forgot the Yud required by the standard orthography. The line 7 and 8, the term Sakra can refer to a round shield or buckler. This probably designates the bowl itself, which contains the divine name Yud-Hey 7 times, and would have been buried under the edge of the house. In the position, the bowl would act as a round shield against the demon's nails. An alternate possibility to understand Sakra as balls, implying that Yud-Hey was written 7 times on the balls of the door to the house. So it can be written on the bowl or on the balls. It's really here we have a big problem to solve it. Till now I am studying. In the same line, this is the line 8, we have the expression تنحتي دروح بيتا, under the edge of the house, an expression which means at the entry of the house. The word تنحتي is more probably an error of أحتي, under, or a verb with the meaning get down, cast down. The word روح can be a noun of the verb رواح, to be enlarged, to expand. Here it is a status constructus of روحة, space, interstice. For روحة side, for روحة side, you can see the dictionary of Sokolov. Probably this expression designates the location in which the ball was to be buried. It seems that the meeting point of the balls and the thresholds is a point where the evil spirits gather together. Thus, at this junction point, the practitioner placed the incantation ball. The confusion and the misunderstanding of this paragraph is probably because the scribe had compiled different texts together. The following sentence, and their chariots are a chariot of no good ones, is mentioned in other texts as Pagdana's chariot is the chariot of the evil one. In the line 8, we have the two divinity, Shamish and Sina. Their names are presumably derived from those of the Akkadian gods of the sun, Shamash, and of the moon, Sin. In the line 9, we have the cardinal points appear in this text as winds, but in other Aramaic magic bowls appear as simple direction, east, west, north, and south. The first word, Astana, from the Akkadian, Ishtanu, north. Uriya, from Akkadian, Amuru, west, west wind. And the third one, Shuta, is from Akkadian, Shutu, south or south wind. For the last word, Gabla, the east, the scribe does not use the Akkadian shadow, east, neither the Syriac Madanha, also east. This is the only use of the word Gabla to designate the east in Syriac bowls. Probably the scribe used the Arabic word Jabal, from where comes the eastern wind. The line 10, Be'izikta Chamhiza. Usually we have the the classical use of Beziktad Malka Shlomo. The name of Shamhiza has been interpreted etymologically as Shum Hashem Hazeh, by the name of this name, but in my opinion, this is not yet certain.
Gabi, sorry to
The word
interrupt you. You have
Maria Bagdana is the king of deaths, as in the other poem. El Anushkar Bagdana, king of the dead and the great ruler of Lilith.
Gabby,
The
can you hear
demon
us?
Bagdana-
Can you
Yes.
hear us? Okay, you have 5 more minutes.
Okay, I finished. So, the Bagdana attested in different texts as Lord Bagdana or Elishur Bagdana. This demon is called Bagdana Aziza in one bowl and described as an apocalyptic being, a malevolent, powerful, and awful god. The last line we have the two words who call Shidanuta Wam Shadranuta. These two terms in these actual forms seem to be unattested in magical bowls. The term Shadranuta can designate the spirits that are dispatched through the evil practices and through evil magical acts. And also the last line, Amin, Silab, this is a common concluding liturgical formula in the incantation books. Thank you very much.
Gabi, thank you very much. Probably we have some questions. Please. Anybody? Please.
Okay.
Gabi,
you hear me?
can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay.
not slowly please because it's noisy here.
Okay. Abuna, thank you for a very interesting paper on a very interesting incantation bowl. I just had a comment on the word Shidanuta, and obviously Professor Shaba would know more than me because he's a specialist in Neo-Aramaic dialects. Many of the people who do speak Neo-Aramaic, in the eastern dialects of Nina, northeastern Neo-Aramaic, Shidanuta literally means lunacy. It means to be crazy. So it comes from the word Shida, which means demon. So demonism is probably a good translation, but it could also mean probably lunacy or some type of mental illness, if possible. And again, thank you very much. Shukran Latir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's possible, you know, in the magic literature, we have not really always a special and precise meaning of all the magical terms, especially concerning the Shide and demons.
Thank you. More questions? Here? Yeah, please.
Thank you so much for a really cool bowl. Really fantastic. I had a question about a comment you made about the grammar. You had mentioned that this bowl, in a super interesting, has the thiome, and you'd also mentioned that you thought that the scribe had forgotten to put in a yud. I was wondering why you think it's forgetting to put in a yud rather than just variation that exists within Syriac that we might be seeing in the bowl. So I was just wondering about what made you decide that.
Yeah, I think I was following the classical dictionary words, how it is presented in the classical and the classical literature and the classical dictionary. I never found shane without yod.
Thank you.
Shane with the siome. Usually we use bishnaye with the yud.
Thank you, Gabi. We have the next question.
Thank you very much. Just a question according to the practices.
You have to put it
Please,
on.
can you more loud?
Now, do you hear me better? Yeah. A question of practices. I know that in some, rural region, such bowls are still in use. Do we have already such a practice even nowadays, or it was just a question of the Middle Age and so on?
No,
There's no evidence of being used such bowls by some priest or some deacon who still knows well where is our. I know that.
Actually, no, but as I know, probably in the Kurdish community, they continue to use the kind of bowls or bells to practice some magical prayer.
Thank you.
And Simcha has a question.
Hi, Gabi. Thank you so much for this really interesting
Hi,
talk.
Simcha.
A question about the relationship between this bowl to Morigi's number 1. As you noted, they're nearly identical. So the first question is, what does this bowl change in how we see this formula? Relatedly, did you mention the fact that this appears to be the sister of the client of the other bowl? Because it's both the child of Dudao, or Dudai.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they seem to be siblings, in which case that leads to my third question. Do you think it's the same scribe, or are these two different scribes?
No, I think there are different scribes because the text in Morigi, it's different. It's erased. A big part of it is erased. The script is not just the same. And what I say, probably they ayin to, usually they say dudai, but here dudau with wow, ayin, wow. Usually we use yud, dudai, yud, vav. Here it's ayin, vav. Yeah, the name little bit different. And the script little bit different. I should check if it's really the same client. As I mentioned, Gilyata, it's not at Gilyada but Dudai, it's not attested till now in other bowls.
Thank you, Gabi. Probably one more question. Thank you, Gabi, for your presentation. Thank you that you were with us online. Thank you, Gabi.
Now we have moved back from the last presentation to the today's, to this moment. It is Parveen Sham'oun Matte who wants to come with a poem on Satan. Please prepare, dress well, especially for the occasion. She is from the Syriac Writers Union of Abir. طبعا مخا ولا من تبعها بس
ها؟ لخ اخذت محل كان ذاك بس اي لا الفلاطه البقويني ما دي خلنا
gesehen und gemacht. Ich wollte einen Hintergrund machen. Gar nichts. Okay.
خشله
Wie soll ich es denn abdunkeln? Soll ich es so lassen? Dann kann es, glaube ich, auch so. Einfach. Achso, soll ich ihn rausziehen? Okay.
بس مرض شلام اللوخن ورمشوخن طاما قميتك شكرا رابا أو بسيمة رابي شابو طلاي القريتي لخل ديا لومادا والكل أني مهيراني هايتم بسيمة تودي ساقي مشحتي إلى بشمت لمنشخ سيفه مقم زرقت تشمشة كد يوم قيم أخوة أسخوة الحقلة وبيرة جم أخوة زمرخ وراوي والطيرة شم أخوة بالخخوة بصيخة وصليوة رش مخوة شغفلة شميلا هوار درايا خيال زورة إلا بقرايا خبيايا ودمة من أقل جرايا بمارة عروق قطلب برايا مد بيروخن بعد دواوة تاما بسيبقها طولة ببرامة عما بابا وخونة أبيلودة ويما وش قلون خماثة كل بغرو دم أهد آيمة أيد كاسح بركته تريقيا ناثا ملاخ طنطا من يقرد مرة الأرعم بلتا وإنا بغدارة البراتة تلقتا كصليوة تورن شمطلن نقاشة بشختنو إيتا وبغرة قديشة مذبحة مخرول وبرمل قاشة بسيبها دمانة مرمل نيشة ناشب بربزل من برمة وزدوثة كل جنقة قطل وصلول خماثة سمقلة أوجونة بماية شقياثة وخوخلة بدمة سهدت مديناثة بكنيافة شمشة مخيلة زهريرة عالدمة سهدة والهالة بهرة الشمير شملة خرش مخقيرة اقشتمارا بشمية نقيرة قربانة سيفه وبتبايش تخيرة أنسهد زديق ملية كانوثة أخ مشيحة طقن كل حشة وموثة ولبرش لروحه من هيمانوثة لزديلو مسيبة وقريلو بحقوثة هائديو يوما بدي اوخ قولا بتكثوخ وبتقاروخ العلمة ممطخلة بتخرخ أثمرة، بتخرخ أثمرة. لا وبدي أمرخ لا، بدي أمرخ لا كلن بغدادي كلن ميضالي. بخيدة وقالة، بخيدة وقالة لمنشخ سيفو، لمنشخ سيفو، لمنشخ سيفو. هايتم بسيمة تودي سالي تاكل لخم بسيمة رابع.
Now we have a break of 1 hour.
Gabi, kannst du mich hören? Gabi, kannst du mich hören?